we've been, as a department, very successful over the last 7 years and 8 months. Crime has been reduced at the end of 2010, 7 consecutive years. That's only happened one other time in the department's 130-year history. That was from 1989 to 1995. The department has never reduced crime in Dallas 8 consecutive years. And 2011 is the 8th consecutive year. And crime is down 4.3% today. So there's enough months in the year left for us not to be successful, but I'm confident that we will be successful in reducing crime again this year. If you break down crime between violent and property crime accounts for 88% of crime in Dallas. Burglary and theft categories drive our numbers in the wrong direction many times. And that's the biggest struggle we have, is reducing burglary and theft in the city of Dallas. If you own a car or own a house in Dallas, I'm preaching to the choir. You all know that most neighborhoods experience some kind of theft or burglary, no matter where it is in Dallas. And so what we've tried to do is get officers out of cars walking. Operation Heatwave was kind of the predominant theme, is get officers out of cars in neighborhoods walking. And also, this is the second day today of our Back to Patrol for officers behind a desk. So our desk officers, all of our investigators and everyone that doesn't work in patrol have to spend 2 weeks on a 6-month rotation in patrol, walking neighborhoods, patrolling neighborhoods. We're focusing obviously on the highest crime areas of Dallas, but in the future we'll be walking all the neighborhoods in Dallas. We kind of described this effort as Community Policing 2.0. What's different about it and why we put the 2.0 on it is that we're going to measure success by outcomes, which wasn't done much in the 80s and 90s when you talk about community policing. It was just establishing relationships, but we want to establish relationships so that we can have an outcome of reducing crime, particularly burglary and theft. They happen in the daytimes predominantly, and they happen in neighborhoods. And so what we want to do is get all of our officers who are in a specialized unit engaged with a neighborhood, walking. Property crimes being 88% of crime, the majority of it comes in with no leads. Someone breaks out a window, steals a laptop. Someone kicks in a door and takes a Game Boy or Xbox. There's no witnesses, there's no fingerprints normally, there's no other evidence. And so my argument internally with the department has been leads won't come to your desk. Leads won't come to the office. The leads we have to develop are in neighborhoods. And so I think it's a worthwhile effort. There's some risk. Obviously, I'm sure they've been expressed to some of the reporters with some of our critics inside the department. Managing the caseload is a risk because fewer people will be in the office. That's a legitimate risk. If you look at the risk I'm actually taking with managing caseloads in the property crime area, we solve 7% of property crimes. 7. So 7 out of 100 is going to be solved, and that's the risk I'm taking. The reward on the other end in doing this is I strongly believe that we will prevent more than 7% of burglary and theft by being visible in neighborhoods, contacting the public, gaining criminal intelligence, and changing the outcomes of the no-lead offenses that come in at a 93% level. We don't solve 93% of burglary and theft in this city. And so we want to do better on preventing crime, and we also want to be better at establishing and developing leads through interaction with neighborhoods. The risk with crimes against persons detective is even a greater risk because they solve at a rate at 70-75% of crimes against persons, particularly homicide. And so to pull them out, it's a greater risk to pull them out and have them walk in the neighborhood. The risk being a case or a lead is sitting on the desk because not many people are in the office because they're rotating back to patrol. When I talked about the 8-year run never being done in the city, there's also another crime statistic that's never been done. This is the 10th consecutive year of violent crime reduction in the city. Never done that. Violent crime over this 10 years have been reduced 50%. 50% is significant. Homicides are at the lowest rate since the 50s, when we were a city with less than 500,000 population. We've got 1.1 million right now. What we haven't done is reduced crimes against persons detectives by 50%. If we were a for-profit organization, we'd reduce by workload being reduced, which we haven't. And my argument internally with those units is we have a 50% efficiency that we want to put in neighborhoods, walking, developing leads, and in my opinion, preventing crime. If you look at a formula for any law enforcement agency, it's preventative, it's enforcement, and it's incarceration. Community policing 2.0 is on the preventive side of law enforcement. I'm confident that we'll reduce crime this year, although it's tenuous right now with a 4% reduction with 4 months left, but I'm confident we will. And I believe this effort will go a long way for now and in the future at really, in my opinion, separating Dallas amongst our peers, but also helping us do what we've never done in our history as a department. Reduce crime 8 years, reduce crime 9 years, 10 years, and more, in my opinion. I think this is the way to do it. Engaging the public in neighborhoods, making neighborhoods safer on the preventive side of crime, not necessarily just the investigative process, which is after the fact the crime has already occurred. With that said, I'll shut up and listen.
You've kind of done this on a smaller scale when you did Operation Heatwave. Can you give us some numbers of how success, has that been successful for you?
Very successful. Operation Heatwave started in April of this year, and it was developed because we had struggled reducing burglary. Burglary was really going the wrong direction. Home burglaries in particular, residential burglaries, were up at a level of 3% this year before Operation Heatwave. Currently, as Operation Heatwave has ended, as this new Back to Patrol has started, burglaries are at 0. It reduced burglary and theft in the areas that we were focusing on by 4%. Actually, it was 4.5%. As a result of Operation Heatwave, we developed 15 new crime watches in neighborhoods. Organized neighborhoods are safer neighborhoods. We made 22 arrests as a result of Operation Heatwave, many of those felony arrests. We were emphasizing criminal intelligence in the areas we were focusing on from the community, what the community knew about the criminals in the neighborhood. We were able to, through iWatch Dallas, get 450 anonymous tips that led to 850 actionable intelligence items where Patrol was able to take some type of action against someone based on that intelligence. It was very successful, but if you ask people that participated, it was the worst thing we've ever done. So what we have is a little bit of mission creep, and the military has dealt with this probably more often than American law enforcement has, where your unit's mission is more important than the department's mission, and the facts don't matter. And that's why it's really important to meet and communicate in forums like this. And I've been going around to all these work units and really just kind of trying to focus on the facts of the outcomes of any type of operation rather than how someone might feel about it or its impact on my particular work unit. And if the goal is making Dallas safer, we all want to be satisfied with this. And this is just a matter of communication from my standpoint, from me, in a better way with the department.
But how do you deal with the family violence unit that's down 15 detectives right now, and that they have huge caseloads? How do you reconcile that?
Right, you take risk, and you may not mitigate family violence. What we're doing with that, separate and apart from this issue, is we're adding more detectives in family violence. I think that's long overdue. We've taken our permanent light duty officers that were assigned to other parts of the department and reassigned to them, and I've also directed commanders to look at other units and redirect those detectives to family violence. And so we will be staffing up family violence. That's separate. That's a separate and apart issue. That case management issue has been going on for several years. This is not a new problem, and there's great risk not being as efficient as you can in family violence. Their business practices need to change. Their investigative processes need to change. That's separate and apart from what we do on the preventive side of crime.
Chief, why do you think so many officers, or at least a number of officers, are opposed to doing this?
Yeah, and I like the way you put that. You put a number and then you put so many because they're anonymous. And I would start out with saying this. There's a percentage, and I think it's a small percentage of officers in every department in the country. I call them cops against virtually everything. That's what I call them. They're against virtually everything. They resist change in every way. But they're the minority. They're the fringe. But I understand that they call you guys and report to the media their disgruntled perspective of any kind of change. I think part of the majority is this: better communication from my office, better communication from their immediate supervisors about the outcomes, the importance, explaining what mission creep is, which is very important to explain. Where I always ask this question: would you rather be the best work unit or the best department? And would you sacrifice one for the other? I would hate for someone to tell me I want to be the best work unit and not be the best department. To be the best department, we've got to have reductions in crime, in my opinion. The work unit success ought to meet the department's success. And so I think the way you phrase it, I think a small percentage are against virtually every change. Now, I'm not speaking to that audience. I think that's a different discussion in a different way. For the majority of officers who are open to do anything that will reduce crime, they're here and they're ready to go to work, I have to make a better appeal to their inner public servants. The reason why they got here, the reason why they're officers is to serve the public. And I've got to make a better appeal to that officer. And not focus on just the fringe who are going to be virtually against everything I would want to do, and not just me, any chief. I mean, just change the chief, and it's the same reaction from some people. So I'm not focused on that fringe group. I'm focused on the majority who, if you communicate in the right way of why we need to do what we're doing, if you focus on the outcomes, the successes of the outcomes, I think that they're willing to work for you.
Did you have to go this route because you don't have enough patrol officers? Because you've got your NPOs, you've got your CRT teams, you have all these officers already out there. Is it because you just don't have enough men on the street?
No, I don't believe so. We're at 3 officers per 1,000. I mean, that's been the goal. That's been sufficient. I think part of why we want to do this is every year when we look at our success, it's because we were willing to make adjustments. We were willing not to be satisfied with mediocrity, or the same way we've always done it. And also, I would also describe community policing this way. If you have a unit that's tasked with doing community policing, you're probably not doing community policing. When you have a department focused on community policing, then in my opinion, you're doing community policing. Some of our specialized units don't interact with the public at all, unless they call. And what I like to do is, I like to change the conversation about law enforcement in Dallas. Is I don't want a citizen to interact with us only when they need us, only when they call. Our citizens are so important to the department's success. Our interaction with them is vitally important as we go into this finish this 8th year and go into this 9th year in our effort to reduce crime again. The mayor's tasked us with being a top 5 city. We're a top 7 city right now, cities above 1 million population, and that's going to take an effort from everyone interacting with neighborhoods, not just the neighborhood police officers, who've done a great job, but we need every hand on deck in this effort to engage the community.
Chief, you addressed the fact that I know that some officers were opposed because of the caseloads they thought might get backed up if they're pulled off on the street.
Right.
But I know that there was another argument made, at least to some, that some of these officers who haven't been on patrol in a while might be somehow in harm's way or might make mistakes or do things that might get citizens or themselves in trouble. Can you address that?
Yes, and we really think that's very legitimate. Some officers, I've talked to officers that hadn't been in patrol for 20 years. They've been behind a desk for 20 years or more. And what we did to try to deal with that concern is we had the first day of the rotation is all training, reacclimation to patrol. Although they get 40 hours of acclimation to patrol training in their in-service training every year they're on the department. It's a 2-year cycle. But at the same time, we're partnering them with officers that are in patrol. We're not sending them out there by themselves. We're partnering them. On yesterday, the bank robbery, there were officers that were in this first cycle rotation who were involved in responding to the capture of that suspect. And that's why I think, we can really benefit from having everyone pitch in at the patrol level. It really does, from the public's perspective, create more visibility for us in their neighborhood. And it creates, in my opinion, a better response. I think yesterday was a good example of a better response with more people in patrol, in uniform, engaged with the community.
So they'll actually be answering calls as well, or are they going to do those surveys like you did in Operation Heatwave, where they go
Not so
asking-
much. What they'll be doing, what they have done, because it's already started, is work in the highest crime areas in Dallas, and they'll be partnered with our crime response teams and our deployment units, our plainclothes officers, in responding to all of the high crime concerns, the persons, places, and behaviors that contribute to crime in Dallas. Wanted persons, drug locations, and the like, and they'll be dealing with things that are the root causes of crime and trying to have an impact on preventing more crime.
So they'll be in the red zones.
Yes.
There have been a few instances of excessive force that have kind of given a bad rep to Dallas police over the past year. And you think that putting these officers out in the field could help change that perspective?
Yeah, I think you hit on a very good point. Although we haven't had any more excessive force than we've had in the past. I've looked back 20 years. It's about what it's always been. It's a small, if you look at our terminations, if you look at our discipline, it runs about 13 a year. And you go back 20 years, it's about 13 a year. This year is the lowest number. I've terminated about 9. We normally, our average is about 13. So it's less than it has been, although it's been very newsworthy, which is something different than a problem in the department, pervasive throughout the department. But I think veteran leadership, which is what's out of patrol, it's veterans. And what's in patrol is a very young workforce for us. I think it's a benefit. I think it can be only positive with interactions with veteran officers and younger officers on what veterans just kind of know intuitively what rookies are learning. Any other questions?
Was this new way of community policing like from another city, or how did this come about?
Well, this is my brainchild. When I interviewed for the job, this is what I talked about wanting to do if I was selected for chief. Is that I wanted to re-engage DPD more broadly in community policing. I thought that there was a benefit to do this rather than just depend on traditional policing efforts. I thought that, particularly being a Dallas site, being born and raised in this city, that our neighborhoods are our strengths, and that any way we can engage the neighborhood through knocking on doors, asking people without them calling for us, what other problems in your neighborhood could benefit the department in a great way. And I think we'll see some positive results. I'm really confident in that. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Was this new way of community policing like from another city, or how did this come about?
Well, this is my brainchild. When I interviewed for the job, this is what I talked about wanting to do if I was selected for chief. Is that I wanted to re-engage DPD more broadly in community policing. I thought that there was a benefit to do this rather than just depend on traditional policing efforts. I thought that, particularly being a Dallas site, being born and raised in this city, that our neighborhoods are our strengths, and that any way we can engage the neighborhood through knocking on doors, asking people without them calling for us, what other problems in your neighborhood could benefit the department in a great way. And I think we'll see some positive results. I'm really confident in that. Any other questions? All right, I'm meeting with Glenn White, having coffee at about 9:30 to do more influence. No, I don't think you want to influencing people. One thing I will say though, I've heard the criticism from some officers that it won't work, and I'm really have been engaged in all the work units in communicating, and I've done a lot of listening, a lot of persuading, but really the bottom line is I'm just not going to take no from as an answer from officers. This is that important. I think it's an opportunity. If you look at what happened from 1989 to 1995, no one knew in the department that we had done something that we have never done before in our history, reduced crime 7 consecutive years. Every work unit I've talked to, in talking about this and listening to the concerns, no one knows we're about to do an 8th consecutive year. No one knows. It hadn't been written about in the local media or talked about in local media that much. But it is significant. It is significant. This is a significant accomplishment if we're able to finish out this year with an 8th consecutive year. Never been done in our 130-year history. And I believe this back to patrol effort is going to be one of the key things that helps us accomplish that in the coming months as we close out this year.
Well, how do you deal with the morale then, though? Because there are officers who are like, you know what, their approval rating's not very high among the rank and file. I mean, that's obviously not negotiable, but based on the calls that we get all the time, how do you deal with the morale? How are you selling this to them, to the troops?
You know, it's a tough sale. I can tell you, it's a tough sale. It's not just creature comforts being behind a desk. That would be the knee-jerk response from someone. I think it really is a focus on my work unit's mission and not much of a focus on the department's mission. And so I have to really try to segue the work unit's mission to the department's mission in my conversations with them. It's leading from the front. It's about me taking risk and having conversations with officers and persuading them to give their best effort in dealing with the community. You know, if you look at the community's perspective, they wouldn't understand why an officer working behind a desk wouldn't want to be out in their neighborhood. But if you look at the officer's perspective, it's my work unit's caseload is going to be mismanaged because I'm not there. There's a lot of efficiency. If you reduce any crime by 50%, there's 50% less workload. All I'm asking is 2 weeks of that efficiency in a neighborhood to benefit on the preventive side of crime. That's all I'm asking.
Are the officers opposed to this? Let's just get to the bottom. Is this hard work? Are they just lazy? They don't want to go do this? I mean, what?
Absolutely not. What I've heard in talking with them, I'm sure I hear differently from when you get called, and it could be an anonymous rant. But mine is a face-to-face conversation about what the real problem is. And so I think I get more to the bottom of it than what you might get as a call on an anonymous rant. I do get, they love the department. They love this city. They're dedicated. They're committed. But the mission of their unit has become their sole focus. And the outcomes of a departmental effort is less important. And what I've got to do as chief is somehow make that all the same. I have to try to get officers to understand that their work unit mission has to match the department's mission. It has to be. It can't be more important than the outcome of making Dallas a safer city.
How long are you going to do this? Because I always go back to Operation Kitchen Sink out at Northeast, because you did something similar to this. You've got your detectives out of the investigative units, you put them in uniform, and you got them out there. So how do you sustain the drop in crime if you don't continue to just do this continuously and have officers out there?
Right. Not only do this for all those reasons I've already mentioned, but the preparedness of the department in a homeland security effort. These officers, although they hadn't thought about it, we're a tier 1 city as it relates to homeland security. We're just at risk as any major city like New York or Chicago or Los Angeles for a terrorist incident. So we, as a department, have to always be prepared to put your uniform on and go out and protect the city from that perspective. And officers who have those concerns as we continue to do this, in my opinion, are more prepared. The 20-year veteran that's been out of patrol for 20 years can be better prepared, in my opinion, by doing things like this, being more engaged, putting the uniform on, the vest on, interacting with citizens in a different way than just sitting behind a desk and investigating a crime in that kind of that sanitized environment. So I think it can benefit us in a lot of ways, but sustaining it, I think, is doable. I think this is something that obviously will be flexible and learn from and improve. But I think this will be ongoing as long as I'm chief. So we'll make adjustments if needed, and we'll obviously listen to feedback.
Is there a message for the street, the criminal on the street?
More officers are going to be in neighborhoods, both preventing and enforcing the laws of this state and this country. That's the message. Any other questions?